because they really believe that the law of God had been broken. Because in Genesis 49:10, there's a prophecy that the scepter would not depart from Judah until Shiloh, Messiah comes.
Destination Commander,
And when the scepter departed from Judah, which is the way they interpreted the loss of capital punishment, they actually thought the law that the word of God had been broken. And so they literally went in psychological Jerusalem bemoaning, not knowing that up in Nazareth there was a young boy in a carpenter shop.
New location, Commander.
So.
Yo, Whiskey X-Ray, you wanna know what's crazy about how shit you are at this game, dude?
Whiskey, nigga, he's just sat in the corner, just fucking not moving.
If we got Whiskey in, okay, that's cool, that's
In the Babylonian Talmud and what have you.
Let's
Let's move on.
sir.
Verse 8,
On the
God
mark, sir.
spake unto
Right away,
Noah
sir.
and to his
Solid as
sons
a
with
rock,
him,
sir.
saying, I like that phrase.
Destination Commander,
How straightforward.
unit reporting.
God
High
spoke
speed, low drag.
to Noah
High
and to his
speed,
sons
low drag.
with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and
Vehicle
with
ready.
your seed
On our way,
after
sir.
you. This is an important passage. God is
repair?
entering into a
Got the
covenant
plans right
with all
here.
mankind.
I have the tools.
This is not a
Got
Jewish
the
thing.
plans right here.
This is not a law of Moses thing. This is a covenant with the Gentiles.
Yes, sir.
That's all there was.
High speed, low drag. Ready to roll.
Behold, I establish my covenant with
High
you
speed,
and with
low
your
drag.
seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth.
Construction complete.
And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off anymore
Need a repair?
by the waters of the flood.
Analyzing schematics.
Neither shall
I've got the
there
knowledge.
anymore
Analyzing
be a
schematics.
flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and for every
Ready to
living
roll.
creature
On
that
our
is
way,
with
sir.
you
Construction
for
complete.
perpetual generations. And I set my bow in the cloud,
Building.
and it shall be for
Squared
a
away,
token
sir.
of a covenant
On the
between me
move.
and the earth. It's alluding to a rainbow. The term is bow, and we think of it as a rainbow, and that's what the word means.
Yes, sir. Bound forward. Securing position. Yes, sir.
It's
On my
interesting.
way.
It shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all
On
flesh.
the move.
And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy
I have the tools.
all flesh.
Unit ready.
Pretty familiar ground, but let's talk about a few things here. First of all, it's Dr. Barry Setterfield,
Construction complete.
who was one of the earliest to identify the speed of light's been slowing down.
Unit ready.
The speed of light was much higher, 100,000 times higher, even in the days of Solomon, many times higher in the creation period.
Machine shop.
His calculations
Unit
suggest
reporting.
that it's possible,
Squared
not
away,
certain,
sir.
it's possible
Moving
that
out.
the speed of light
Ready.
had to slow down to a certain level before it would refract to create a rainbow and do a raindrop.
Building.
And so it could be that the reason there weren't rainbows beforehand was because the speed of light hadn't slowed down enough to create a rainbow.
Building.
Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting the rainbow is strictly a natural occurrence. God is here designating it as a reminder that He's made a promise that He'll never again destroy all flesh by a flood. Now, there's another implication more important than that one, and that is this.
Training.
There are those that like to
Construction
argue
complete.
that the flood was a local phenomenon,
ready.
just in that region. And it's amazing how many very prominent Christian authors and speakers
Can do.
have that view in their heart of hearts.
On my
And I
way.
don't understand that view. I can understand lots of other controversies. There's good men have a right to differ on a lot of subjects, but this one surprises me because God is saying that rainbow and that covenant, He's promising never to do that again. Well, there's been lots of very substantial floods on the planet Earth. And if that flood was a local flood, He didn't keep His promises. You follow me? So, strangely enough,
Construction
if you
complete.
hold the view that it was a local flood, you're
24/7.
indicting
It's
the
in the
character
bank.
of God. Because God is clearly representing that
Construction
whatever that
complete.
was that happened is He's never going to do again. Do you trust Him? Does God mean what he says, and does he
On
say what he means? I think so. So it's not a question of just, hydrology and geographics and stuff. It's really an issue on your attitude towards God.
Incoming transmission.
If you believe God says what he means and means what he says, then it was the universal flood. There's evidence for the universal flood too, but I'm not building my case on the evidence. I'm building the case on the text. So, and I'll remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living thing, creature of all flesh, that water shall no more become a flood to destroy all the earth. Now, the other thing you need to learn about God is watch out for the small print.
New construction options.
Because God very much means exactly what he says.
Building.
And one of your tools, as you get into prophecy especially, is to be very precise. And there are many times in the 40 years I've studied the Bible where I've had to revise my prophecy held views. But every time that I can recall, it's always been in the direction of taking even more literally than I did before.
Unit ready.
As I get closer to the text and look how it's fulfilled, there's some hair-curling examples.
Natural sanctuary. On the prowl.
When Babylon conquered the southern kingdom.
Now you see me, soon you won't.
Jeremiah and Ezekiel
Good day, Commander.
had
You'll
predictions
get the
about
cat in
Zedekiah
a
what was going to happen. One said he'll never see Babylon, the other one said he's going to die there.
Training.
And he made fun of them. You guys can't even get your own story together.
On the prowl.
And when the Babylonians conquered him, they took Zedekiah, bound him with fetters of brass,
Building.
put his sons before his eyes and slaughtered his sons before his eyes, and then put out his eyes and carried him off to Babylon blinded.
Unit
He
ready.
Need a
died
repair?
there. You go back and read
won't
the
be
prophecies, he would never see Babylon. Yet he died there. You think, ooh. I mean, you talk about precision. You see what I'm getting at? So you want to be careful. Well, in this case, too, is that God doesn't say he's not going to destroy the earth.
Mean, green, and unseen.
And Peter explains that for us.
Laying low.
In 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 5 through 5, 6, and 7. Peter in his second letter says, "For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth, standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished."
Construction complete.
That's what we've been reading about, right?
Replanting.
Then he goes on to say, "But the heavens and the earth, which are now, by that same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and the perdition of ungodly men." Okay, God's saying, I'm not going to destroy the earth next time by water. Doesn't say he's not going to destroy it.
Nobody here but us trees.
Next time by fire. So you
Laying
want to
low.
watch the small print, right?
Our base is
Let's move on, chapter 9, verse 16. "And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth." You know, it's probably a very important, we may fail to really appreciate how terrifying,
Construction complete.
not only the animals probably were,
Unit ready.
because they don't know what's going on, but even mankind. As they leave the ark and go to settle,
Natural
you
sanctuary.
think that every time they see
Now
a
you
rain
see
cloud,
me,
they'd get nervous.
Soon you won't.
Can you imagine the insecurity of discovering the world having been wiped out? And so this assurance is probably far more essential than we have any idea for them to just to continue to have some kind of optimism for the future. And God said unto Noah, "This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the
Natural
earth."
sanctuary.
Okay, so this is Genesis up to verse 17.
Replanting.
But let me share another thought,
Operational.
sort of a
Rudder set.
peripheral thought.
Aegis reporting.
When we study the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the first horseman that comes out is riding a white horse, and because he is, many commentators get confused and presume that's the Lord Jesus Christ.
There it is.
And if it is, he's keeping bad company, because the other three horsemen are pretty good characters. In fact, it's our view, and the view of most conservative scholars, that the first horseman is the Antichrist. And I won't get into a whole study of that for another thing, but I will point out one thing that's kind of interesting. He carries with him not a sword, he carries with him a bow. And many people associate that bow with Nimrod for some good reasons, and we'll cover that in the next
Allied
session.
cruiser ready.
Construction complete.
But the word bow toxon in the Greek is the same word there that is in the Septuagint here. And I believe that the Antichrist is going to come to power, and his signature will be that he's going to enforce a covenant for 7 years. Not sign a treaty, that's what he says. No, be careful. The language says he enforces a covenant.
Unseen.
And the fact that he's carrying a bow, in my mind, links with that, because a bow is what? A token of a covenant. I think there's a clue there. I'm not suggesting he's carrying a rainbow. Don't misunderstand. Although maybe it is. The New Agers have taken the rainbow as one of their symbols. I'm not going there. My point is, though, he's carrying a bow, which is the word in the Greek is a token of a covenant, because that's the way it's first used, first mentioned. Remember, in here in Genesis 9. Not a big deal. Tuck it away in the back of your mind as you study prophecy. Keep that in mind. It's a possibility, because the word toxin is used in both places. Let's move on. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. And these are 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. In other words, all of us in this room are descendants of one or more of these 3 sons. I say more in the sense that they're descendants cross them too, so it's not like this. Anyway, but Ham is the father of Canaan, which is a strange phrase, because he's going to get into the genealogies. He's going to mention that again, that Ham is the father of Canaan. It's mentioned twice as we go through these texts. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And by the way, not born in that order. The order in the Bible is often the most important first, not necessarily in chronological order. And Shem will be more important because out of him will come Abraham. Ham is the father of Canaan, and that's probably emphasized for several reasons, some of which we'll come to. But if nothing else, is that the Canaanites were the proverbial adversaries of Israel. And so these genealogies are anticipatory of what you're going to need to know. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them the whole earth overspread. Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted the vineyard. Now the word husbandman, actually the term is a man of the ground, a farmer. And Joshua 5:4 is called a man of war. 2 Samuel 16:7 speaks of a man of blood. Genesis 46:32, a man of cattle. Exodus 4:10, a man of words. These are terms. Well, Noah apparently knew how to farm. Not surprising, even though he's over 600 years old, he's farming. He's setting a vineyard. Now we're going to talk about wine here a little bit. So let's give it. I like to have something to offend everyone. I don't want to play favorites. There's nothing wrong with wine. Fermentation is a natural process for preservation. Deuteronomy 25:4, 1 Corinthians 9:7 indicates that there's nothing wrong with wine. It's called beneficial in Judges 9, Psalm 104, Psalm 31, 1 Timothy 5. So there's nothing wrong with wine. That doesn't mean it can't be abused. And that's what everybody is so concerned with. Wine is a symbol of blessings in Genesis 27. It's a symbol of blessing in Proverbs 9, Isaiah 25, 26. And it also was blessed by the Lord himself at Cana, at the wedding, John chapter 2. So wine intrinsically, nothing wrong with it.
That was some
Moderation.
fine work, Commander.
Drunkenness is the sin that's involved that we're getting into. Let's discern the difference between wine and an excess thereof. Drunkenness, of course, is condemned in more scriptures than you can list here, but I'll list a dozen of them here, and that's so obvious it doesn't require, I think, further exposition. Well, so Noah raising a vine, generating wine is not the problem. The problem was he drank of the wine and was drunken. Bad mistake. Tragic mistake. And he was uncovered within his tent.
Let's take an excursion.
Now, this is strange. There's a strange passage here about which many good scholars have very different views. But he was uncovered within his tent. Now, literally it says, it's reflexive. He uncovered himself within his tent, whatever that turns out to mean. And Ham, and here it inserts a strange phrase, the father of Canaan, you see it says it a second time, saw the nakedness of his father,
got the knowledge,
and told his 2 brethren outside.
Repairing.
And Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. So at least at a primitive level, what appears to be the problem here is that Ham looked upon the nakedness of his father, and that was considered an indignity to the family. And what could have happened here is that Ham may have used this indignity as a attempt at leadership to discredit his father. He may have run out and told his brethren and tried to make a thing of it. they didn't buy into that. They wouldn't participate if that was all that was involved. But there are some views that have other things involved. Saw is naked. There's several views that float around here. There are rabbis that have the view that Ham actually castrated his father. And they justify the language, that this is all a euphemism hiding that fact, and that's why Noah had no more children after that. That's their argument. Well, I don't think that's too widely held, but I mentioned it as a possibility. Another view you'll find papers being written on in the seminaries and stuff is the view, this idea that he saw the nakedness. That phrase, you can find examples in the scripture where that phrase is talking about the nakedness of his wife. His wife's nakedness was Noah's nakedness, is the concept. And some people suspect, for some subtle reasons, that Ham may have slept with what may have been his stepmother, not his actual mother, but he may have, the first mother died, could be a second marriage. See, some substantial time may have gone by. This wasn't the day after they got out of the ark.
Main engines engaged.
And so, that Ham slept with his stepmother, and that Canaan was the offspring. Some scholars, it's all conjecture. I'm mentioning it's not that it's necessarily bulletproof, just that you be aware that there are these strange views that are going on. A more widely held view by many scholars is that what's really being covered up here with euphemisms is that Ham was involved in a homosexual attack on his father. And that comes about, if nothing else, that Noah is going to discover when he wakes up, he could tell something had been done to him.
Steady as she goes.
So it implies something more than a casual glance.
Speed to full.
So the word galap
Main
is the
engines
verb involved in Leviticus 18, from 6 to 19. In all but one verse, it uses the causative form of this to indicate improper sexual behavior. But on the other hand,
Speed to full.
Noah had already uncovered himself. That's the reflexive form in verse 21. So you got arguments, you can take this both sides. Anyway, so Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And this is what opens the door for all these weird conjectures, because it wasn't just a glance, something happened, whatever it was.
Rudder set for
But then what causes even further mystery, the fact that Ham may have misbehaved in some way, he doesn't curse Ham, he curses his son. And this has caused volumes to be written by the commentators trying to figure out why is the... He said, "Cursed be Canaan." In other words, the son of Ham that's involved. That's why some scholars figure that maybe Canaan was an inappropriate offspring from Ham. So Canaan gets the curse. That's a conjecture. Understand, all these conjectures are strictly conjectures. I mentioned just for your own breadth of awareness, not that anyone is
Rudder set for new heading.
Cursed be Canaan, servant of servants shall he be to his brethren. And he said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." So see, God, Noah, there's another aspect of this too I should emphasize. We see this as a curse. In our language, it would seem that Noah is responding to that impropriety,
reporting for duty.
because he's initiating a curse. That's a possibility, but it could also be something else. It could be simply a prophecy that God, through Noah, is prophesying what's going to happen. Follow me? It isn't necessarily linked directly. In any case, and again, of course, Canaan is prominent in the text anyway because they become idiomatic of Israel's enemies when they enter the land, which is obviously generations later. So cursed be Canaan, servant of servants shall be. He shall serve Shem, and we'll show you some examples of that. And God shall enlarge Japheth. Now, the word Japheth means enlargement. There's a pun going on here. And Japheth, of course, is the son that populates most of the world. They're the ones that really spread out. Most of going north and going west and east. The sons of Japheth. Ham went south. Shem stays roughly in the same region. So you'll see all that later. Now the Canaanites were defeated and enslaved by the eastern kings in Genesis 14. We'll study that when we get there for lots of good reasons. The Gibeonites under Joshua became wood choppers and water carriers for Israel's tabernacle in Joshua 9. The Battle of Carthage, beginning in 146 BC. The Phoenicians were really Canaanites in effect. They were finally defeated, of course, by Rome. The Battle of Carthage, a big thing. You saw the movie The Gladiator. You remember that's where that's reenacted in a
Land shifters in working condition. Land shifters.
So anyway, let's finish it up. Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So he's a big old guy. because it was the flood, you know, it was the 600th year of his life, and now he's 350 years later. And all the days of Noah were 950 years. Boy, and he died. So we get to chapter 10. Now, chapter 10 is one of these pivotal chapters. You don't need to memorize it, but you may want to take some notes as you study your Bible, not tonight, but in general, so you understand these strange names you're going to see. And I'll give you some background on that.
New coordinates.
By the way, does anybody know the name of Noah's wife?
Lens shifters.
There you go, Joan of Arc. Everybody knows Joan of Arc. There you go. I had to give you a chance at that, right? Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, we're going to take them in inverse order. Shem's the most important. We'll take him last. The one that comes first is Japheth. Now, to them were sons born after the flood. What we're going to find out is we're going to go through 70 names. A few of them are highlighted because they're important to you. But it's interesting. I'll show you when we get to the end why 70 turns out to be an interesting number. So we'll take the sons of Jacob first. Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshech and Tiras. And then from those 7, you get a few more. You get the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. And then the sons of Yavan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Zananim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. I want you to notice something that's going to be important next chapter. These isles or areas or regions of Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue. The division that's in view here is not continental drift. When we get to, we're going to get to a place where it talks about in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. And many people assume that somehow has to do with continental drift. I think if that happened during the flood. What it's talking about is the division of the languages, which occur in the main event in chapter 11. And this is one of the hints right here to help you get that perspective. But let's try to lay this out. Japheth had Gomer and Herodotus, who is considered the father of all history, and Plutarch will talk a lot about the Sumerians, which settled along the Danube and the Rhine. So there, Ashkenaz is a son of his that speaks really much of Germany. Riphath, Josephus links that to the Paphlagonians. The word Europe actually derives from the Riphath language, but Togarmah, of course, refers to the Armenians as well as Turkey and Turkestan. So these are Japheth, Gomer, and then his sons, and then Magog. Now, let me stop here for a minute. Have you ever wondered why, all through the Bible, it uses these weird names? Do you know why it does that? We make it do that. It's our fault.
Shifters in working condition.
You see, you and I, we keep changing the names of things. There was a city called Petrograd, and then it became St. Petersburg.
Insufficient funds.
Then for quite a few years it was Leningrad. Now today it's St. Petersburg again. What will it be next year? Who knows? You know, there was a town called Byzantium that became the capital of the whole world. When the capital moved from Rome to there and renamed it Constantinople. When the Muslims overran it, they changed it to Istanbul.
Changing position.
There was a place in the United States called Cape Canaveral. How many remember Canaveral? Now it's called Cape Kennedy. And it came that close to being called Cape Hillary. That's what's
Waiting order. Moving.
See, we keep changing the names of things. And so, if you're Isaiah, and God calls upon you, Isaiah talked a lot about the fall of Babylon, which is really weird if you realize that in Isaiah's day it hadn't even risen to an empire yet. You see? But even more interestingly, Isaiah talks about the Persian Empire coming. Now, how does Isaiah talk about the Persians over 100 years before it shows up in history?
High speed, low drag.
He talks about it as Elah, who's the forebear of the Persians.
Weapon ready.
You see, we don't change the name of our ancestors.
Securing position.
So if you're trying to talk about the descendants of Abraham, you can do that because they don't change the name after he's dead. They change the name while he's alive. But in other words, your ancestors are those labels. So we get to this Magog label, which is very important when you get to Ezekiel to figure out who are Magog. And fortunately, there are a couple. When a guy kills his mother and father and then throws himself on the mercy of the court because he's an orphan, that's chutzpah. There isn't a comparable word in other languages, but in any case, this young man had the brass, if I can put it that way, to give a Old Testament Bible study to the most august Jewish council of the time, the Sanhedrin.
construction
And
center.
you'll find that in Acts chapter 7.
Conscript
By the way,
Waiting orders.
one of the fun things to do sometime
Moving
is
out.
just study
Vehicle
Acts
report.
7 and
Vehicle
make a
report.
list of the
Moving.
things that he reveals there you cannot find elsewhere in the Bible.
Waiting
There's 3 or 4 things that are startling
Location
that
confirmed.
come out of his insights
Construction
that are really
complete.
quite fun. But I want to just take you to
Ready, comrade.
Acts chapter 7,
Changing
verse 2
position.
through 4. Visualize this young man, and
Waiting
he's
order.
reviewing the Old Testament
Moving.
in front of in this court hearing, in effect.
Ready, comrade.
And he said,
Location
"Men,
confirmed.
brethren,
Ready, comrade.
and fathers,
Changing
hearken.
position.
The God of glory
Waiting
appeared
order.
to our father
Moving.
Abraham when he was in
Location
Mesopotamia before he dwelt in Haran." Really?
Construction option.
Mesopotamia, by the way, means
Vehicle
between the
reporting.
rivers. That's what the word means.
Location confirmed.
And it's that region
Waiting
between the
order.
Tigris and the Euphrates.
Changing
It's a strip
position.
of land that we
Changing
associate
position.
mostly with Iraq and Syria, up into Syria.
Building.
Moving. Changing position.
And
Moving.
God said unto him,
Changing
"Get thee
position.
out of thy country and from thy kindred,
Location
and come into the
confirmed.
land which I will show thee."
Changing position.
Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran, and from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein ye now dwell. And Stephen goes on to make his lecture, which goes
Vehicle
on for quite a
reporting.
while.
Changing position.
By the way, another little footnote for those of you that want an extra credit
Moving.
assignment. Take Stephen's address
Training.
Building Soviet
And outline
economy. Building Soviet economy.
and recognize he was
Equal share
interrupted.
for
They didn't let him
everyone.
finish.
Ready.
From his
Cannot report
outline,
here.
can you figure out what he was going, where he
Miner
was
here.
headed, and what
Let's
he was going to
keep
say
the ore moving.
before they interrupted
War
him?
miner here. Let's keep
I'll
the
give you a
ore
clue,
moving. Pride
but you
of the
verify
working
it for your own
class.
study.
Equal share for
He
everyone.
goes through the history of Israel, how they always blew it the first time,
Ready, comrade.
but made it on the
Location
second.
confirmed. Waiting
Blew it
order.
the first time,
Vehicle
made it on the
position.
second.
Tools
Moving.
And they
ready.
didn't recognize
Checking designs.
the Messiah on his first coming.
Training.
And they get so upset,
Vehicle
they take out
reporting.
and stone him.
Moving.
Where was he headed? They blew it in the first time, they'll get it on the second.
Ready,
And you
comrade.
can build that from Old
Moving.
Testament prophecy. But it's interesting, the
Unit.
young man
Vehicle
apparently was
reporting.
heading in that direction before he got cut off.
Vehicle reporting.
Wiring.
Moving.
Anyway, he tells us some things here. He
Waiting
says
order.
Ready.
that the
We
God of
are
glory appeared
on
to our
it.
father Abraham when he
Equal
was in
share for
Mesopotamia
everyone.
before he dwelt in Haran.
Ready.
Unit.
And he was
ready.
told to get out of the country, out of his kindred, coming to the land which God is going to show him.
Building.
And he came out of the land of the Chaldeans, and he dwelt in Haran. Well, Haran is not in Canaan.
Unit. Ready.
So let's take a look at what this all means. See, he was before he dwelt in Haran.
Ready.
Now, understand, this is a map. You can
Let's
see
clear the air.
right about the middle, I put Babylon, not because as a frame of reference for you from our
Do you
previous
have a plan?
but a couple hundred miles,
What is your
about
mission?
100
Making
miles or so
tracks.
to the
Unable to comply.
southeast
Building in
is a place
progress.
called Ur. It's one of the oldest regions on the planet Earth from a civilized point of view. Ur of the Chaldees.
Our ally is under
See, that's
attack.
almost at the Persian Gulf. So that's maybe 100 miles from there.
Cancelled.
Haran,
Construction
well,
complete.
first of all, God told Abraham to get out of his country, away from his kindred, right? And God told him that when he was in Ur. What did Abraham do? He moved upriver.
Construction complete.
He moved up to Haran. Haran is north of Damascus. Nowhere near Canaan, by the way.
Spy plane ready.
And he's in Haran
Building.
when his father
are
finally
armed.
dies.
Let's keep the ore
Then
moving.
He
Let's
picks
keep
up
the ore
and
moving.
does
I
what
have
God
the
told him to do.
information.
So you
Examining
could make a
diagrams.
case.
What
There's
are
probably
types,
5 years
comrade?
time
Dive!
up there in Haran. And you could make a case. You say, gee,
They may be near, maybe
that
near.
wasn't faith.
Checking
He didn't really
periscope.
do what God told him to do at first. But it's interesting. You can't find that in the text directly. Why?
All infantry units will not
Let's clear the air. Making
What does God
what is
promise
the
you about
mission?
your sins?
Maneuvering.
Construction complete.
They'll be remembered no more.
Unit.
And that may sound like double talk, but see, but then remember we read Genesis 12, verse 1. It says, "Now the Lord had said unto Abraham."
They make
See,
me
back when they were down there,
Dive.
he was supposed to
Attack
leave down there.
Dive.
I infer. Leave his father, leave his family. That's what God called him out of. He didn't do that. He just moved
What are
upriver
types,
with all of
comrade?
them.
They won't
For about
detect
5 years
our
until his father died.
approach.
Now, there may have been some
Good.
extenuating circumstances, there was illness, who knows. But in any case, it
Rising
wasn't until
current.
his father died that he then obeys. And God credits his obedience, even though
Unit.
from our point of view it may have been
Building.
a little dilatory.
Good. Under
God had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. And then God gives him these famous I wills. I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee, make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
Dive!
By the way, it's astonishing to realize how the rise and fall of nations relate to the treatment of Israel. And there are some interesting books that have been written on that. It's absolutely amazing how that goes, and even in relatively modern times. It wasn't that long ago that they shepherded Jews into ghettos with walls around them, machine gun anyone that was climbing over that wall. A few years later, there were walls around Berlin, and Germans were machine gunned for climbing over that wall, until Rudolf Hess, the last survivor of that leadership, died in Spandau prison. When he died, that wall came down. But you can go on, there people have some authors have treated this rather interesting. 7 I wills. God says, I will make thee a great nation. Nation is and I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great. And thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families, not just Jews, all families will be blessed. Every benefit you and I have in Jesus Christ derives from this covenant relationship, surprisingly enough.
Torpedoes
And
are
the important issue is for us to
checking
realize
periscope.
that contract is still intact. And when we mess around in the Middle East, we inadvertently are poking our finger in the eye of God. God has put his name on that particular parcel of ground. He has a destiny for it, he has a plan for it, and we jeopardize ourselves by not recognizing it. The nations are going to be judged on this basis, according to Matthew 25, 31 through 46. The Great White Throne Judgment. This Abrahamic covenant foresees the blessing of the family of the entire earth. Paul develops that in Galatians chapter 3. And it is going to be a part of the aspects before the throne of God in Revelation 5. Let's move on. Verse 4. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. His nephew went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go to the land of Canaan. And unto the land of Canaan they came. And to give you a perspective, they're up in Haran. So now they're migrating downward, southwestward, westward direction into the land of Canaan. And I haven't bothered to get into the specifics of Canaan. We'll do that on a subsequent review. But Abraham passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, or Sikkim is here, or Shechem, same place, unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land. We're going to talk a lot about them before it's over, the Canaanites in general. Most people who read their Bible do not really understand what the Canaanites were really all about. We'll come to that when we get there. The Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land, and there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. One of the things you can do in your notes is keep track of Abraham building altars. Every place he goes, not every place, but frequently he builds altars. And he's an example to all of us. If you'll excuse a pun, we all need altered lives.
What are dice, comrade?
And I mean in terms of places of worship. I will give him this land, and there build an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence into a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. And, it's interesting, there were no altars in Ur or Haran. This is part of his trek, this is part of his calling. He didn't have altars before. He and Terah, by the way, and the whole family were idol-worshipping Gentiles. They were pagans. God called Abraham out of it. One of the symbols you're going to find here in Abram's life, but it's a very poignant symbol to really understand, and that's a tent. The tent is, and you can just say, well, that's the cultural thing. No, the tent is a temporary residence. He sojourned. He's not establishing a permanent place. His eye is on the city whose builder and maker is whom? God, exactly. And so the tent is his emblem. You and I are also called to be strangers and pilgrims on the earth. You have to do that in order to accept worship as possible. It's interesting when you study the book of Revelation. There are two kinds of people there: the saved, the saints, those, and the earth dwellers. Those that dwell on the earth. And it doesn't mean just that they're physically there. They dwell on the earth. The earth's their home. That's where their commitments are. That's where their priorities are. That's where their heart is. That's what's implied by the whole thing. And so you want to be sensitive to that contrast, not only here in Genesis, but also in Revelation. Anyway, Abraham continues to journey to the south. And there was a famine in the land. And Abraham went down into Egypt and sojourned there, for the famine was grievous in the land. You and I don't have any idea what that's like. None of us have been that hungry. But these were not avoidable. They were serious.
Airship ready. Maneuver props engaged.
Good fishing here.
So Abraham went down into Egypt. Now, if you just read this naively to begin with, you figure, well, that's natural. That's what he should have done.
Ready.
I mean, Egypt had the Nile, had a more reliable source of grain, so it was a natural thing for him to do. But you also discover, as you read your Bible, that Egypt is used idiomatically to represent the world.
Airship ready. Airship ready. Setting new bearings.
Isaiah
set.
31:1 says, "Woe unto them that go down to Egypt for help," and so forth. In other words, to do that instead of trusting on the Lord.
Good under pressure.
Many commentators are pretty hard on Abraham for going down there. I'm not sure where I stand on that. I suspect that it was just plain pragmatics to do this, and yet it does lead to all kinds of problems.
Setting new course.
I don't know what his alternatives really were. Trust the Lord, of course.
What are
It came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt that he said to Sarai, his wife, "Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon." And boy, when you read the book of Genesis, the more you learn about Sarah, the more you can defend the view she must have been really unusually attractive for lots of reasons. She was quite a gal. But in any case, he's nervous because she's so attractive. That's going to be great trouble for him. He says, therefore it shall come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they shall kill me, but they will save thee alive. Now, so say, I pray that thou art his sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee.
Do you have a plan?
So that's his strategy. By the way, he doesn't do it just here. He does it
What is
every
the
time.
mission? What
This
is
was
the
his
mission?
policy.
Maneuvering.
You'll find it in verse 13. You'll find it in chapter 20, verse 2, and chapter 26, verse 7. And in the second instance, he even explains that this was his policy. Pretty serious. So it is possible to be accurate and yet untrue.
Unit ready.
And journalists are like that.
Airship ready. Set.
Ready.
Okay. Now she actually was. It wasn't a lie. She was his half sister. Chapter 20, verse 12 will emphasize that. And
On hold.
but he just conveyed to the Egyptians all he wanted them to know. You see, in that society, in enemy territory, a husband could be taken, killed. The wife considered a prize. And but if Abraham was her brother, they would have to negotiate with him for her marriage. It would give him a second line of retreat, if you will. And so it sounds a little weird to us, but it's under the context of the situation, it is an understandable strategy on its part, although it is less than truthful. And
Building.
so the princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. See, something that Abraham may not have counted on.
They want some flash.
She not only
eh?
attracted the Egyptian's eye right up to the top. Before commended her
The
before
water's
Pharaoh, and the woman
warm,
was
yes?
taken into
Let's
Pharaoh's
make some
house,
waves.
into his harem and so forth.
Unit promoted.
And he entreated
Nice
Abraham
day
well
for
for
a
her
cruise.
sake, with
Running
sheep and
high.
oxen and asses and men
Yes,
servants and
Commander.
maid servants
Navigating.
and she asses and
Target
camels
sighted.
and so forth.
Unit ready.
So Abraham has scored.
Ship reporting.
He's really well treated. But he's got
Engines engaged.
he's got to be vexed over this situation.
Navigating.
The Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. You need to understand that if Sarah doesn't survive this relationship, God's promises to Abraham will be. God has an equity here. And God's supernatural intervention is the only thing that's going to save the situation. So these plagues come. That's interesting. These plagues are long before the book of Exodus. I'll show you some parallels in a minute. Pharaoh called Abraham and said, "What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife?" He somehow found out the truth. And he's really upset. And this is messing around with serious stuff because Pharaoh could have him killed. There's no protections. He says, "Why saidst thou she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to wife? Now therefore behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. Take her and let her go." I know I visualize he is interested.
Target sighted. Fire at will.
The Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and he sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. So he has to get out of town. He has to leave Egypt, but he leaves with a huge bounty.
Navigating.
Now, I want you to consider, I'm going to show you some things here, and it's not the substance I'm concerned with, but just the methodology you might alert yourself to. Is there a parallel?
Vessel ready. Navigating.
There's famine in the land here in Genesis 12 and also in Exodus. Remember?
Fire at will.
The descent into Egypt, to sojourn, not to live permanently, but to endure
Vessel ready.
problems. Genesis 12 and also Genesis 47. The attempt to kill the males but save the females.
Reporting.
The plagues in Egypt, both here in Exodus 7 and all the way through to 11. The spoiling of Egypt, not only being kicked out, but taking great bounty with them. You see the parallel here? And then the deliverance, both here in Genesis verse 19 and also in Exodus 15. And then from there, the ascent into the Negev, to the south. And the parallel here is Genesis 13 and Numbers also 13. So there seems to be, it's almost as if God is not only keeping his promise to Abraham when he protects Israel, but he has, in a sense, you can almost visualize Abraham, maybe obviously unknowingly, acting out in advance the very thing that's going to happen to the nation some substantial, some 400 years later. So let's get into Genesis 13. Separation with Lot. Abraham went out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abraham was, when it says the south, by the way, so you don't get confused, the word south in the Hebrew is Negev,
Engines engaged.
the big desert between Egypt and Israel is the Negev. It's called the Negev because it's south of Israel, south of Jerusalem. But he's leaving Egypt toward the Negev. He's not going south of Egypt as he takes down Ethiopia. No, he's actually going northeast. But he's into the Negev. Okay.
Navigating.
Here they've translated the word Negev, which is a proper name, or uses a proper name. What they're using here is just a direction. But anyway, Abraham was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. In fact, we're going to discover as we go on that some scholars believe Abraham could well have been the richest man in the world in his day.
Airspeed to maximum.
He is going to have an occasion in chapter 14 to raise up an army out of his own household of 318 trained armed militia. So that's bizarre. You know, he's not some little tribal chief.
Looking for quitting. Looking for quitting.
This guy is a major player. And he went on his journeys from the south into Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, Bethel and Ai. And under the place of the altar which he had made there at the first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord.
Vessel ready.
And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them. They might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And again, bear in mind, we're not talking about just a couple of guys in their herds.
Let's take over the area.
They all had large servants
Vessel
and
ready.
establishment. It was very substantial. There was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land.
Vessel ready.
And the Perizzites you find come off north, usually lumped into the Canaanites. The word Canaanite sometimes used collectively, sometimes very individually. So Abraham said unto Lot, "Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee." By the way, the word strife there is miracle. And you may recall when you get through in the numbers of when they're wandering in the wilderness, they have contention at Meribah over water. And those when they would read this, when a Jew would read this, there's a parallelism continuing with this one. Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. And so, is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, I'll go to the right. If thou depart to the right, then I will go to the left. Listen, Abraham's approach to this is one of generosity. You pick it. You go where you want to go, and I'll go the other way. We need to separate for the sake of the flocks and the strife and all that. So Abraham was generous. Lot will turn out to be greedy and worldly all the way through his life. But now, there's a reason that Abraham can be generous. What would that be? But he's got God. He also has a prophecy. He knows he's going to be taken care of, right? So Abraham, because he's a man of faith, can afford being generous. So can we. So can we. I went and looked at the back of the book. We went. It's interesting, we don't apply that sometimes. Does our walk in business and elsewhere reflect the fact that we're really of faith? Anyway, Lot lifted up his eyes, verse 10, and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed. This is editorial note here. Before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest to Zoar. In other words, that region that we associate with barrenness, those regions is like the Garden of Eden. But the editorial comments, that's before Genesis 19, because there's going to be a lot of changes. Most scholars recognize Sodom and Gomorrah at the south end of the Dead Sea. So there were a lot of changes there. We have no real grasp of what it was like. It was obviously quite attractive because it was the place that Lot chose. As he looked at it,
We've got the big gun.
and Lot lifted his eyes. That phrase is a very key phrase.
Let's take over the area. Guns unleashed.
It's interesting. I'm going to suggest another conjecture to you. I'm going to suggest to you that the eyes are the portal of Satan. It's our eyes that get us in trouble. It got Eve in trouble when she saw the fruit as we desired. It got David in trouble when he was looking off his balcony. The young man who saw the Babylonian garment in Joshua 7. You'll notice as you go through Scripture, eyes tend to get us in trouble. In contrast, the ears seem to be God's portal. Romans 10:17. So then faith cometh by hearing. And by the word, here you go, where you go. In the book of Revelation, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the seven churches. It doesn't say he that hath an eye, let him see what it says. No, he that hath an ear. And it's amazing. I remember reading a paper when I was a teenager along that line. I thought, this guy's got a black eye. It seemed like kind of an extremist. But as the years have gone by and I studied my Bible, I'm beginning to suspect that person who wrote that little paper way back then probably had more perception than originally given credit for. But Lot lifted up his eyes, and of course gets himself in more trouble here. And David's eyes got into the Bathsheba thing, but lost the life of Uriah, lost the dignity of his throne, and the honor of his country, and on and on and on. So anyway. And that this Zoar, by the way, is a small town. They retreat to in chapter 19 when he leaves Sodom and Gomorrah. Then Lot chose of all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, pitched his tent toward Sodom. Pitched his tent toward Sodom. That's not just talking about compass bearers. It's talking about where his heart was. That's what he had. That's what he had in mind. That's what he would, constantly check the classified ads and so whatever. Okay. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly.
Shuttle, ready for passengers.
Don't
get too close to combat.
It's not amplified here, but we'll get a very vivid glimpse of that in chapter 19. Lord said unto Abram after that Lot was separated from him. Notice, God waits until he's
teammates-
alone. God
your
waits
teammates
until
screwed
he's
you in that
separated.
match.
When he doesn't, he wants him
But they just
separated
did
from
nothing.
these
And then
this
they got
baggage,
destroyed.
spiritual baggage he's hanging on to.
My
Lord said unto
computers on
Abram,
my team
after
destroyed
that
two of
Lot
your
was separated
computers,
from
I
him,
think.
lift
At
up
least
now
one.
thine eyes and look from the place where thou
Let's put
art
you
northward
in
and
stressful
southward and
defense.
eastward and westward, for all the land
Instead of a stalemate.
Yo, Whiskey X-Ray, you wanna know what's crazy about how shit you are at this game, dude?
Whiskey nigga, he's just sat in the corner, just fucking not moving.
We got Whiskey in. Okay, that's cool. That's